So here at the router table, I've installed a 3/4 inch V-shape router bit. Now it doesn't have to be a 3/4 inch one. It could be, as long as it's a V-shape. You can have they come in pretty much out of the box. There's a lot of them. They look like this. Here's 1/2 inch one, and since we're doing 3/8, as long as the router bit is 3/8 or larger, V-shaped router bit should be adequate. So first thing I want to do is lower the head just enough so we can establish the center line. Now you could measure the where the fence, how far and how close it needs to be. But I prefer just to set it up on the real deal piece, and it's fairly easy as long as it's you kind of lower it just enough so it protrudes just enough, and then just barely above it, maybe 1/8 above the surface. But what you do after that is you just place the board where you think it needs to go, somewhere right there. And just move the fence up against it. So if that's where it is, we have it perfectly. So that's how you set the fence. You don't have to measure it. It's good to measure it, but to be honest, it's you're not gaining much by precisely measuring it. The key here is consistency across the entire length of the board, and that's what we want to achieve. If it's a little bit to the side, as long as the entire groove is a little bit to the side, that's perfectly fine. The consistency is we have to have one straight cut. The next thing we want to do is we want to raise it just enough that it would basically would give us would look like what we need. So it's high enough. Maybe 3/8 of an inch. Now there's ways to measure it, and I have a little gauge. It's one of these gauges that you can get at Home Depot, and here's our 3/16, and I can go and place it, and looks like it's a little bit high. To be honest, these gauges I don't particularly trust them or don't rely on them entirely. They're perfect for setting depth, but with every cut that you're gonna make, you want to make sure that it's adequate. So what I have is some scrap wood, some plywood. What we're gonna do is we're gonna just take test cut, and then we're gonna look at the groove. That's why I have the 1/4 inch balsa sticks that I'm just gonna measure and make sure it's it sits in there properly. Most of it, as long as it sits there up to half of it, it's fine. If it's a little bit above, that's fine too, but we're going to shoot for it to be absolutely flush, especially if we're going to do the trailing edge the same way. We want to make sure they're the same distance from the surface, right? So we're going to cut this thing smack in the middle, so the trailing edge and the leading edge are going to be positioned perfectly parallel to your building surface. There is value in that, and you want to shoot for it. Is it absolutely critical? Not if you're planning to use using your building surface as your reference 0-degree surface area. So a lot of times you can adjust your incidence of the wing just off the surface of your table. So you do want to build things at least a same height above the surface, especially if the wing has maybe a changing angles. Maybe if it's one of those Al Ray beautiful wings where there's a taper, one kind of taper followed by a different kind of taper. You want to have a surface that is absolutely flat. So this is what we're going to do. We have some surface, and we're going to cut a few pieces.